Hello, welcome to this walkthrough for how to recreate this JZ visualization in Power BI. I'm going to be walking through the different steps, both to format and to create these charts within the application. So let's get started with first creating a new blank report, and we're going to load in the JZ dataset. If you don't have it already, it's in the description. We only need the Rambsy JZ samples, so we're going to select that one and load it. Once the data has been loaded, we're going to want to format and customize our canvas. So go over to the view up at the top bar, themes, click the arrow for more, and then we're going to select the dark theme, innovate. Then go over to format your report page in the visualization pane, select color, and I already knew what color I wanted to make it. The hex codes are all included in the Google Doc. So I went ahead and typed that in for that dark blue. Once that is done, we're going to go back up to the top bar and click Insert, and we're going to retrieve that image of JZ that you should have already downloaded. If you haven't already, it is also linked in the Google Doc. So here I'm just kind of resizing it to see how it fits, and I kind of start to realize that, I might need a bigger canvas size if I want to make it as bold and big as I'm envisioning. So I want to make sure you deselect the image before you do this and go back to the click off to the background, which I'm about to do. And then go back to the format your page, and then under canvas settings, you change the type from 1619 to custom, and I changed the height and width to make it a little bit wider. So here I'm just playing around with it and getting a sense for how big the canvas is and where I might want to position things. And next we're going to move into making our first chart. The first kind of chart we'll be making is a stacked column chart. You can find all the visualization types in the visualizations pane off to the right, where we'll select stacked column chart. Our data is also off to the right in the data pane, where we'll select release date and drag it into the x-axis. I'm only interested in the year, so I deleted the quarter, month, and day data. Then I went and dragged album title also into x-axis because I wanted to decide between which data was going to show. And then on y-axis, I dragged in number of samples and changed the sample type to count, clicking that down arrow. You'll see that I also selected drill up. Drill up basically means moving up in the x-axis order. So it went from showing both album title and release date and year to drilling up to only show the album title. This is just a little customization option. In order to change the name of the y-axis, I went over to the y-axis and changed the name from count of number of samples to number of samples by double-clicking the data. Then to format it, we go over to format your visual, turned on data labels to show the numbers on the columns, and went over to general, turned off the title, and we're going to change the color scheme later with all the rest of the charts, but for now, it was looking pretty good. To create a word cloud of all the artists and movies sampled, we're going to go over to the three dots in the visualizations pane and select Get More Visuals. Once it's loaded, search word cloud and download the one by Microsoft. Once it is loaded and downloaded onto your computer, select and we're going to begin dragging in data to the visualization. Select sample artist and drag it into category. Also select sample artist again and drag it under values and change it to count. And as you can see, now it's showing the artists and movies that were sampled, but you'll see that things like Notorious B.I.G. are kind of separated and not one continuous word. So we go over to format, general, and then we turn word breaking off, but we turn special characters on so things like periods and hyphens show up. I also increased the minimum font size to 40 so that you can see the names a little bit better. There's a cut, but I go over to the General tab, turn off the title, and turn off the background. I go back to Visuals and change the default color to my standard orange. Next, we're going to use the cards chart to show the KPIs of this data. Select cards from the visualizations pane. We wanted to show the sample genres, sample artist, and the number of samples. So we're going to drag in sample genre under data, sample artist under data, and sample song titles under data. Click the downward arrow to change sample genre type to count distinct, because we want to make sure that we only are measuring how many times a new genre shows up. Then we're going to click the downward arrow to change sample artist data type to count distinct. Lastly, we click the downward arrow to change the sample song title data type to count. And we're doing a double click to rename them all to genres, artists, and samples. That'll change how it shows up on the card. To make it easier to read and more visually appealing, we're going to switch to formatting, and under callout values and then values, we're going to increase the font size in bold. Still under formatting, we're going to go to callout values, label, and then change the position to below values, and then also change the size of the text. So that way it reads a little bit easier. Our next chart type is a tree map. So we're going to select tree maps under build visualizations. Under categories, we're going to drag sample genres from the data. Under values, we're going to drag number of samples from the data. Double click to rename the data to number of samples. I also changed the data type to count. Switching to formatting, we're going to go to general, and then we're going to turn the title off. We'll be changing the colors in a section at the end. Select funnel under the visualizations tab. Under categories, we're going to want to drag sample decades from the data. And under values, we're going to drag number of samples from the data. I also changed the data type to count. Now switching to formatting, under the visual tab, we're going to turn off conversion rate label options. This is what keeps it from being read as a percentage. Switching over to the general tab, we're going to turn off title. Now we'll be formatting the visualization to get ready for the final product. So first, we're actually going to go in and just change the colors. I wanted to make sure all my whites were true white, and I was repositioning things. But yeah, just going under each of the individual graphs and going through visual and general and style and just making sure that everything looks the way that you want it to look. You'll see this is when I actually realized I had forgotten to resize my canvas at the beginning. So I did what I showed at the beginning, which is like I resized my canvas to make it bigger. Next, I wanted to change the color of the funnel. So I went over to formatting my Viz, visual colors, and there I clicked show all. So it would have each of the individual data points. And I opened up my Google Doc with the hex codes and went and individually put them in for each one. You'll see I sped that up a little bit. And I went and repeated that process for the rest of the graphs. So you'll find it in different places, as you'll see on my screen. For this one, I had to scroll down to columns, and that's where I found color. And then I changed it to a complementary kind of seafoam green color. So then I resized and drilled up again so that it was showing the album titles. And then for the tree map, we want to change the colors for that as well. Very similar to the funnel process. I just went over to the format your visuals, and under colors, I again repeated that process of manually putting in each of those colors. And now, as you can see, everything is in this color scheme that I want it to be in. I know I needed to change the font in the color of the letters. And now we're going to add text boxes in for the chart headings. So now if you go under insert and then text box, this is for the desktop version. For the online version, if you check the top toolbar on the right hand side, you're going to see something that looks like a text box. And if you click it, that's how you add text. Everything else is the same though, in terms of how you're going to format it next. So I just copy and pasted the ones I already had in another document. Next, you're going to go to format text box, and under effects, turn off background. And that's how we make it transparent. And basically, I'm going to recreate this for all the rest of the charts. I'm going to show a couple, and then I'm going to speed up the rest. Now that I have all the headings done, I'm now going to create the title one, and then we'll jump forward and I'll show you what that looks like. Now everything is in place for the most part, but I still felt like this was a very flat viz, so I wanted to add shapes, which we'll do in the next section. The last thing that we'll be creating for this visualization are rectangles to go behind our charts. Under Insert, click Shapes, and if you're on the web version, it'll be on that top toolbar again where you found the text boxes from last time, to the right of that. Under the formatting pane for the shapes, we'll go to Style, then Fill, make sure that is on, and then the color. I selected the same sort of orange I used for the sample artist names. So now I'm just resizing it so that it fits underneath or behind the cards. So as you'll see what I just did above, I went to Format, and then under that, I went to Send Backwards. So I want all of these to be in the very back. So I right-clicked and put Sent to Back, or you could just keep clicking the Send Backward button until it's at the very back. But I feel like Send to Back is much easier. Then, as you'll see now, it appears in the background and it just looks like a little sliver. And I felt that added a little dimensionality. And I'll repeat this process for all the rest of the charts and behind the title and subheading. There are not many differences in terms of like the most functional features between Power BI Desktop and Power BI Online. But one thing you'll notice probably straight away from this video versus if you're using the web version is that there's just a lot more options on the desktop version. For example, when we're using shapes, we want the rectangle, which is available on both the web and the desktop, but a lot of other ones like the hearts, the ovals, the arrows are not available on the web. So just know that if you are using the online version, you are having a little bit more of a scaled back version, but at the same time, the most functional of the features to make probably the more simple graphs that you'll need are still available to you. And that is it. This is the final visualization draft. Thank you all for listening. In order to share, you click the top right button, but it is worth noting that in order to share it, just have a public link that is easily accessible to anybody non-pro and free members. You do need a pro membership, which I do have. So otherwise, you can manage access and send it out to people individually. Best of luck.